I'm Karen. My yard is wrecked, my fence is gone, and the HOA tried to find me. Stay to the end. I'll show you the exact words and evidence that forced them to back down. I am Karen, and this is my street: neat hedges, white vinyl fences, trimmed lawns under yellow porch lights, and a binder of HOA rules that promise order. At 10:41 p.m., the quiet breaks like glass, a sharp sound that cuts through the crickets, and the low hum of distant highway. Headlights swing wide, tires scream, and a dark sedan hops the curb like a shark breaching a pool, ugly and fast and hungry. It blasts through my fence, rips posts from the earth, and chews a ragged trench through my rosemary, lavender, and rose beds I planted by hand. Wood explodes. Wet soil sprays my porch furniture, and the air tastes like oil, metal, and splinters that seem to float in my throat. This is Karen speaking, and yes, my hands are shaking while the video on my phone starts to capture everything. I run outside barefoot, pajama pants whipping at my ankles, phone in my fist, flashlight on, and I let the camera see what my eyes can barely process. The hood hisses and ticks, the driver slumps over the wheel, and the engine coughs like a drunk animal trying to stand up in a storm. He looks up with glassy eyes, grins at nothing, and slurs that my fence jumped at him like some kind of ghost. I say his name, because of course I know my neighbor, we share a mailbox cluster, and the same trash pickup schedule, every Tuesday. I dial 911 with a steady voice, because steady gets help faster, and I say the address, the damage, the possible injuries, and the word drunk. Coming up, you will see the exact clip that makes an entire HOA board go silent and stare at their shoes. But first you need to feel this night the way I did, breath by breath, so you know why I would not back down later. Sprinklers burst on from the impact and spray the wreck like it needs a bath, water mixing with gasoline into a sour shine on my grass. A cedar post rolls to my feet. A rusty screw prints a star in my heel, and still I do not feel it, because adrenaline is louder than pain. This is Karen, still filming, saying the date and time and what I see, because evidence does not argue and memory gets bullied. He tries to reverse, tires dig and spin, and the bumper drags a chain of broken pickets behind it like a tin can wedding car from a bad movie. I step back to the porch stairs and speak clearly into the mic, street name, house number, license plate, and the words drunk driver on my lawn for the record. A porch light across the street clicks on, then another, then a third, and 3 doors open with the slow, careful sound people use when they want to help but fear fire. Someone laughs in shock and then chokes on the smell, because gasoline and hot metal wipe jokes off faces quicker than any shush. Police arrive fast, blue lights rolling over my ruined garden like cheap disco, and an officer asks if anyone is hurt while another scans for sparks. The driver denies drinking, smiles wide, and then breathes a warm cloud that could light itself, and I catch the officer's eyes saying we both smell it. An officer asks me about the fence setback and the easement line, as if the stakes in my yard might turn this mess into my mistake under some rule I have not read. I say the words again: I am Karen, this is my property, and my doorbell camera saw every second from curb jump to impact, all in clear, cold pixels. Coming up, the HOA email that turns a crime against my yard into a complaint against me for a damaged community aesthetic. But tonight, I stand in wet grass with my slippers soaked, counting boards, counting the crushed roses, counting seconds until the tow truck pulls the nightmare out. My roses lie broken like rumors that finally came true, petals stuck to the grill, thorns bent and dull in the blue flash. The tow truck drags his car away in fits and jerks, and with it goes the last shape of the yard I built one weekend at a time, one paycheck at a time. I look into the lens, into my own reflection, and I promise the camera and myself that I will not be the one they blame when the meetings start. Then a second car rolls up slow from the cul-de-sac, a window glides down, and a calm voice asks a loaded question that makes the officer turn to me, like I am now the problem, Dottin. Morning smells like bleach, wet dirt, and cold coffee, and before I even find a mug, my phone chirps with an email that feels like a slap. The subject line reads, Urgent, Violation and Property Damage Review, dressed in corporate caps like a sheriff badge pinned to a smile. My stomach drops hard, like an elevator with cut cables, because I know that tone, and I know how tidy people weaponize tidy words. The email says my fence may have been improperly placed within the right-of-way, and now constitutes a hazard and a visible eyesore. It claims community aesthetic is compromised, as if splintered boards chose to leap into the street to ruin someone's postcard. It gives me 10 days to restore the view or face daily fines, and it attaches a PDF with line items that look like small nails. This is Karen speaking, and I feel heat bloom in my cheeks because the driver is the hazard and the video shows it in cold light. I scroll to the signature block and find the compliance chair, a neighbor who waves at dogs but writes like a lawyer with a stopwatch. She requests proof of my permit, the setback authorization, and any illumination plans for night visibility of perimeter structures. I pull the plastic file box from the hall closet, dust puffing out like old chalk, and I spread papers over the dining table like cards. There is the county survey with the neat stamp, the HOA architectural approval from 3 years ago, and my contractor's final invoice. There is even a photo of the original stakes hammered into clay, a sunburned me grinning beside a level to show we did it right. I breathe in fours, I speak the dates out loud, and I press my palms flat to stop the shaking that wants to rattle the whole room. I reply with attachments, include the doorbell clip from curb jump to impact, and write a clear timeline that could guide an airplane. Coming up, I warn in the email, is the one frame that ends all doubt, the squeal, the bounce, the smash, and the exact license plate. The response arrives in minutes like hail on a windshield, and it thanks me while sidestepping each proof with new polite questions. They say the video shows my fence rigid and unlit, as if it should bend for drunks and fences should glow like runway lights. They ask why roses were planted so near the line, whether thorns posed a risk, and if I had considered community-friendly species. They CC the full board and the property manager, and the chain of names stretches like a paper spine I am supposed to bow to. I notice a last name that matches the driver 2 doors down, and in that moment the emails feel less like rules and more like shields. A neighbor texts that the man is telling people I left lumber in the swale, that my mess caused his skid, and that he is looking into counsel. I go outside with my phone and film the trench, the clean root balls ripped from earth, and the perfect arc where the bumper carved soil. I narrate the scrape marks up the curb, the shattered reflector, and the smear of paint that matches his hood like a guilty thumbprint. This is Karen speaking, and I talk to the lens like it is a judge with no patience for spin, because evidence stays calm when I cannot. I send a second email with the footage and a letterhead list of damages, and my voice on the audio is steady like I practiced it. I write that the police report is pending, that breath reeked of liquor, that the field test was requested, and that repair quotes are underway. I add that any fines will be contested under Section 7, and that all costs will be forwarded to the responsible party without delay. Coming up, I promise my camera and you, is the single sentence that will make a room of people stop moving and look at their hands. Before that moment, though, the board schedules a courtesy hearing for me, not him, and the invitation lands like a dare on my doorstep. The night of the meeting, I open the door and see his chair already placed beside the podium, a spare seat waiting like a trap. The courtesy hearing smells like coffee and printer ink, and the carpet swallows footsteps like a church. Chairs scrape, a projector blinks awake, and my neighbor sits with folded arms as if the fence crashed into him. I place my folder on the table, line up photos, survey stamps, and the USB with the doorbell clip like surgical instruments. The chair clears her throat and thanks me for coming to share, the kind of thanks people use before a scolding. She asks if I understand the community's commitment to visual harmony, and I say I understand that fences should not be driven through. Laughter flutters from the back row and dies fast because my neighbor is already shaking his head like a metronome. He says the swale was obstructed, that my roses created a sightline hazard, that my aggressive lighting blinded him on approach. I look at the agenda and see the topic listed as owner-caused damage review, and the word owner burns like a typo they wanted. This is Karen speaking, and I choose my voice like a tool, slow and exact, because rage would only help their story. I say the date, the time, the plate number, and the smell, and I slide the USB across the table with 2 fingers. The projector throws the crash across the beige wall, wood exploding in frozen squares, and the room inhales like it shares one lung. Then the compliance chair pauses the video at the moment of impact and asks why my fence is so rigid in construction. My neighbor mutters that softer wood would have saved his bumper, and someone scribbles notes like that idea might live. Coming up, I tell myself, is the sentence that will end this nonsense, but they are not ready to hear it, not yet. The chair invites him to speak, and he launches into a speech about community spirit, about how he volunteers at block parties, about how the turn is tricky at night. He avoids the word drunk like it is a live wire, and the board politely steps around it like furniture they cannot move. They ask whether I'll remove the debris within 10 days, and whether I can expedite repairs to restore curb appeal before the weekend tours. I promise cleanup and present 3 contractor quotes, and the lowest one sits at $6,982 before tax. A rustle moves through the room the way wind moves through dry leaves, and someone whispers, "That seems high," without looking at my torn yard. This is Karen speaking, and my hands stay flat on the table, so the tremor does not tell a separate story. Insurance calls come the next morning, and the first adjuster sounds warm until he learns I am not the policyholder. He says they must finish their investigation, that my plantings may have contributed, and that liability is not clear at this time. I send him the video, the survey, the police incident number, and he replies with a cheerful auto-signature that feels like a door closing. My own carrier logs the claim, but warns me that subrogation takes patience, and patience costs while boards sit in mud. The contractor asks for a deposit to hold the crew, and the number on the invoice tightens my chest like a fist inside it. I sell a necklace I never wore, cancel a weekend trip I never booked, and move money that was meant for a new water heater. A letter from the HOA arrives with the first fine, $25 per day for unresolved visual intrusion, and each day ticks like a metronome over my bed. Coming up, the adjuster will slip, the board will flinch, and a single phrase will land like a gavel, but for now the falls keep stacking. That night I sit on the porch steps, look at the trench, and record a message to you, and to the future me. I will not be the cheaper option. Then a text lights my phone from an unknown number. Drop the claim, and the board can make this go away, and the screen reflects in my eyes like a match. The text arrives at midnight and tastes like ash in my mouth. Drop the claim, and the board can make this go away, and I stare at the glow like it is a lit fuse. Morning brings a paper notice tape to my door, with blue painter's tape. Gentle tape for a hard threat, expedite fence removal or fines continue. I film the notice, the trench, the snapped posts, and say the time out loud because this is Karen speaking and evidence drinks in daylight. A neighbor I barely know mutters as she passes that we all have to be team players, a sentence that sounds like a smile with teeth in it. The property manager calls with a solution, And her voice is syrup. If you sign an acknowledgement that the fence placement was suboptimal, the board can waive most fines. It is a trade, my truth for their quiet, my video for their ledger. And the words sit in my ear like a bad taste I cannot spit out. My contractor warns the quote will jump if we push work into the weekend, crews booked, materials short. And I do math with tired eyes and a tight chest. Insurance leaves a voicemail that says comparative negligence, a phrase that tries to make my roses share a drink with his bumper. I open a certified letter that clicks like a handcuff. It is a cease and desist from his attorney claiming I am defaming him by using the word drunk. I call the police desk and ask for the incident number again, and the clerk repeats it slow like prayer, and I write it on 3 sticky notes and my palm. Coming up, I tell the lens, is the single sentence that will end this blame game. But first we walk through the thorns. I find a folded note under my doormat that says we all see you, and I stand very still because silence suddenly feels like a crowd. The board emails a new hearing, with both of us present, same room, same projector, and a new agenda item called owner conduct. It is a no-win choice dressed like a meeting, and I feel the trap close like soft jaws on an ankle. I can sign and eat the lie, keep my garden cheap, and live under a quiet that costs me each time I mow. Or I can fight, pay fines, risk a lien, and teach myself to sleep to the sound of a ticking ledger. This is Karen speaking, and I pick the fight because I have the tape and the truth and a spine that learned late, but learned hard. The room smells like old coffee again, and my neighbor sits with a fresh haircut and a shirt that says Community Day, like fabric can change a night. The chair thanks us for coming together, and I hear the word together snap in my head like a twig. He says I staged lumber in the swale. He says my fence blinded him. He says the turn is cruel at night, and each sentence floats like a balloon that needs only one pin. I put the USB on the table and ask the technician to unmute the audio, because tonight the wall will hear the breath as well as the crash. The clip rolls, the curb hop, the scream of rubber, the boom of wood, and then we hear his voice after impact, soft, syrupy, and laughing at a joke no one told. The officer's voice follows, clear and steady. Sir, have you had anything to drink tonight? And then we all hear the answer, the long pause, the word couple, the cough, the slur, the stumble. For 5 seconds the room holds its breath like a held plate, and in that quiet I stand up and I use the sentence I brought like a key. For the record, I say, steady and slow. This is a DUI crash. I am the reporting witness, and every fine or pressure aimed at me is retaliation. I am recording this, and it goes with the police report. The word retaliation lands like metal on a table, heavy, undeniable, and the projector hum suddenly sounds like a siren under a pillow. I add one more brick, simple words, simple aim. If you continue, I will file this with the State Attorney General's Consumer Office and our city code enforcement. A board member clears his throat and looks at his hands. Another clicks a pen until the click sounds like a scold, and the chair says we need a recess. Coming up, I tell you, and the camera in my lap, is the part where they try to step around the truth and find there is no floor. We return, and the chair reads a bland statement about new information, and the agenda title on the screen quietly changes from owner conduct to incident review. My neighbor starts to speak and then stops, and the room listens to the sound of his mouth, waiting for a better story that will not arrive. The chair asks for the police report number. I hand it over. A board member types it with 2 careful fingers, like each keystroke might cost him. This is Karen speaking, and I am no longer shaking because the tape is holding me up like a hand at my back. The property manager suggests suspending fines pending outcome, and the board nods the way people nod when gravity wins. I look at my neighbor and say the last plain thing of the night. You will pay for my fence and my garden. I will rebuild it nicer than before. He stares at the wall as if it has a door he can walk through, and for a second, I almost feel sorry for how flat it is. The chair closes the hearing with a soft gavel tap that sounds like a sigh, and on the way out, the manager leans in and whispers, "We didn't know there was audio." The hallway is cold, the fluorescent lights flicker, the carpet eats our steps, and at the exit a shadow moves, and a voice says my name like a question with teeth. The hallway voice says my name. I turn. It's the property manager. Her smile is brittle. Her phone glows. A lock screen text preview. My text. The midnight threat. Same words. Same punctuation. Same period at the end. This is Karen speaking. I don't raise my voice. I only say noted. She pockets the phone like a hot stone. We step into the night air. The lot hums with sodium lights. Engines cough awake. My neighbor is already in his car. The door shuts too hard. The engine revs too long. Tires squeal. He lurches toward the exit. Straight for the HOA monument sign. The thud is dull and final. Airbags bloom like pale fists. Everyone freezes. No one speaks. This is Karen speaking. I feel nothing and everything. Sirens arrive like a decision. He stumbles, cuffed, quiet now. On the back seat, a child's empty car seat. The officer sees it too. The board looks at the ground. The manager's hands shake. I open my camera. I say the date, the time, the sign. I say retaliation again. I say done. This is Karen speaking. I rebuild tomorrow. Fines end tonight. The audio stays with me. Cut.